Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about custom software development. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, what makes custom software development services worth the money? I would say if you have a highly custom need, like a customizable need, then you are usually better off using one of these services, or like a software development company, or like a consultancy or an agency or something like that, to develop it on your behalf. The thing that is tricky though, which is the thing that honestly I have no good solution for it, because it's basically what I argue is the problem with talent industries. Because if you go to and I mean, this doesn't have to be a software company. You can go to like, if you, let's just assume that you're working in like one of these large-scale IT project type of companies where you have tons and tons of teams and so forth. If you ask one developer, and that's what we call estimation, basically, you estimate how hard something's going to be based on your understanding of the problem and how you think that you should solve it, and then you do the estimation bingo type of thing and try to estimate together how much work something is. And that usually, like how much you estimate it to be, can be everything from like, well, let's say a range of things, but the thing that usually dictates how fast something's going to go is what you think is going to be included, the solution you come up with. So if you have one developer who's really, really, really good, and one developer who is so-so, and one developer who isn't all that good, you're going to get three different solutions, potentially. I'm not saying that's always the case, but as you can imagine, it's the same thing wherever. If you go to a musician, or you go to an artist, or a carpenter, or whatever, the cost that you pay them, it's hard to tell what you're going to get back before it's too late, because you're gonna like that. I mean, in a sense, more businesses. I mean, we wouldn't have a lot of businesses if everything was built on results. So you only really pay what the results were, because usually what you do is you pay people for their time, and that's what you do when you hire a software company or similar social services and so forth. You pay them to deliver on something, but you cannot guarantee that the people who are doing the work on your behalf are going to meet your expectations. So the cost, it may or may not stand in proportion to what you expect, right? And that's something I can see every single day at my job. I can see every single day a large organization who have truckloads of money just shovel it out the window, due to the fact that they've hired people who don't really know what they're doing, and so their solutions come out being extremely expensive. But as I said, if they want custom software where there is no low code, no code, or so like sort of option that really fits their situation, then that is really the only game in town, unless you're going to sit down yourself and figure out how to do the whole thing. And honestly, it really is a bit of a seller's game here, because it's for me. For me, it's the exact same thing when I go and talk to an expert in something I have no idea about. When I'm going to buy something, I'm completely at their beck and call, like at their mercy. They can tell me anything, and since I have no skills in the thing that they are doing, and I can't evaluate if this is a good idea or a bad idea, I'm sort of just fumbling in the dark. And for someone buying software services, you're pretty much in the same boat. And so if you want to build like custom software, the main and most important thing that I would go for, and that you should consider more than anything else, not so much necessarily like pricing models and like all this sort of stuff. You need to see if the people that you talk to seem to be dependable, because frankly speaking, you might go into a really cheap consultancy firm, and this happens all the time, my friends, all the time. You outsource something to some company somewhere because they're cheap, and the system sucks. It doesn't always turn out that way, but it turns out that way enough times that I can see a pattern. And that is, frankly speaking, and I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a cheap company. In some cases, it's expensive as hell. like super expensive, and it's still shit work, because as I like to say, it doesn't matter what it says on the door, or like what you call your group. It's the individual in the groups that's what's important. The name is just a name, and sure, we can, and a lot of people get attached to names and so forth, but what gives the name meaning is the people doing the work, and so those are the people that you want to have pretty good relationship with. So if you're looking at trying to buy custom development services and things like that, I would recommend personally, unless it's like we're talking something very, very, very complicated, I would even go as far as to say that it might be best to go to something like Upwork or like one of these like freelancing websites and simply post and ask like who's gonna, build things and so forth, and go based on that. Because the reality is that even if you go to like a consultancy or a serious agency or so forth, they're gonna charge you a lot of money, but they don't necessarily have better software developers. That's the thing I'm trying to get at. Even at the largest IT companies in the world, they can not always guarantee that the people doing the work are going to be the best suited for the task, and it might end up costing a lot for very little. And if you want to avoid that, the best way of doing it is to get a little bit personal and intimate with the people who are going to do the work, and see if you feel like, yeah, these people seem to know what they're doing. If that is the case, you're in a better position than if you go and like talk with one of their like some agency's sales agent, or like head of department or something like that, because they don't know anything about software development. So they're going to sell you a lot of stuff, but they don't actually know anything about the things. So that's at least what I try to do whenever I'm dealing with anything that I don't fully understand. I go quite a lot by how trustworthy and transparent do I feel the individual I'm talking to is. And so the worst person you can put in front of me if you want my money is a sales guy or girl who gives me a bunch of pitches because I know I can't trust you. So what I want you to take away from this is that the thing that makes custom software development services worth it is if you do have a custom need that you can't solve in any other way. Because it can be, that's what the large organizations are doing, and there's quite a lot of companies who have, they have businesses where they have a bunch of processes where they want to automate some things, or they want to create like a web application to do something. Today it's really popular that people go into IoT because they want to be able to connect devices they're selling and grab data from it and so forth. There's no like WordPress plugin for all of that. I hope not, at the very least. So you're going to have to figure out how to build that, and that's when a custom software company or like an agency or something like that can be very, very helpful. As I said, this is worth it when you have those social needs, but be careful when you're like paying for those services. Make sure that you have people that you can trust, because I can promise you this much. When it comes to buying software services from people and you don't really know what you're buying and you can't really evaluate things, it's a little bit like buying the cat in the bag or whatever it's called, right? You don't fully know how things will turn out before you're starting paying them, and like then if the system has a lot of issues and stuff like that, it's likely due to the fact that they are not as great at this as you would like it to. And sadly enough, it is a little bit trickier in IT than it is in other industries where you can hold them accountable. So you have to make sure that your contract very much specifies like uptimes and like all the criteria that you have to put on the system from your side. Because if you don't put that in place, you might end up with a very faulty system that you pay a lot for, but because you don't have an agreement on uptime and stuff like that, they're just going to suck more money out of you. So get people that you trust. Make sure that you have requirements on like how it's going to be delivered and uptimes and all of this sort of stuff that you depend on. And then yes, make sure that you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to pay for. And do this whenever you have the need for something that you cannot buy off the shelf. But really look at off the shelf stuff first. Because if it's off the shelf for like these platforms that you already have and so forth, unless those are really, really expensive, it is usually a safer bet to use one of those tools than it is to get custom software built, because it is a bit of a gamble. Have a great day.